Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a Tier 2, nearly Tier 4 Listen with Vobes episode. It's the 23rd of December in this joke year, and it's wet and miserable outside. It's wet and miserable in the country, and I'm hoping it doesn't jolly well rain towards the end of our book, which would be bloody annoying. Anyway, meanwhile, we are reading on Southern English roads, trying to keep ourselves away from all misery for the next hour. Good afternoon to the lovely Julia, to Turbo Stream, to Billabong O'Neill. Nice to see you there. To Justine Jones, who's in Tier 2 to be in Tier 3 very short. We missed out Tier 3. We're going to jump from 2 straight to 4. There's no mucking about with that. I'd rather we'd just gone straight to Tier 10 and injected ourselves with instant death so that we could get this misery out the way. But no, apparently we're doing a slow leap hop up there. Philip, Hammond and Mary, good afternoon to you. Richard, hope you are all well. Yes, all well. All well. Didn't he write some books? Jolly old Orwell, somewhere along the line. Ben Reeve, I'm about 200 metres from the Oxshire border in Bucks. They were Tier 2 and we were Tier 4. Not sure if they'll be coming up to joining us. Maybe you'll be joining them. Maybe it's moved. The Green Man is there. Hello from Tier 4, sunny Kent borders. Our nearest house is a mile away. John F., good afternoon. Lee Lawson, good afternoon from gloomy Broadwater. At least I can hear our Robin singing loudly. Oh, our Robin, yes, singing loudly in the churchyard. Ah, how lovely. Robin, not Robin. Yes, of course. Ben Reeve says, I can imagine Monty Python doing a Tier 4 sketch based on their 4 Yorkshiremen. Bubbles, luxury. We can't even meet in gardens. Meet in gardens? Oh, you had it lucky. When we were in Tier 10, we couldn't even breathe the air for fear of gulping down the virus. Oh, didn't even. We had to sit in a pond for 14 hours a day with a big lily pad on our head and a frog on the top of that. Oh, you had it luxury. We didn't have any frogs. We had Frenchmen sitting on there with their lorries saying, you can't come in, no way. Anyway, I should save all that for the Vogue show. Dave of Yore, hello. Dudley Sawyer, good afternoon. Richard, fantastic colour your knitted jumper is. Thank you very much. This is a nice dark blue today. Thanks to Mary Hammond. I've been wearing the Mary... Do you remember Mary Quant of the 1960s? Mary Quant for women? The short skirt and all of that? Well, Mary Hammond is the Mary Quant of the 2020s. Her knitted jumpers are going to be, and I am obviously the poster boy for them. Everybody will be ordering that style and ripping her off, copying. You'll get the inferior copies in all the shops. New Look will have them, and Primark. There'll be the £2.50 Primark edition. It'll look like wool. It won't feel like wool. It won't keep you anywhere near as wool, but it'll be £2.50. And actually what they get is sheep sitting there now, because they can't afford people to do this anymore. They'll get sheep there trying to knit them, actually, with their lambs. So that will be the thing. Of course, you won't actually be able to go and visit Primark, because that will be in a Tier 12. Lovely Julia, it's madness out there on the roads. Madness, I tell you. Is it effery out there again? Michael White, yes, we're living through an Orwellian dystopian world now. And James Poulton says, all down to Darwin natural selection. Exactly. I met Mary Quant, says Dudley Sewer. She was tiny. Did she come in a small little pot? Hello, Mary. Are you in there, Mary Quant? Oh, I've just dropped her. Mary, come back. How tiny? Yes, that's the question. Was she a dwarf? You, Joseph, the poster boy for Hammond made jumpers. Homemade jumpers. Remember, I get a 10% discount for a 10% cut of every one you get. Anyway, enough of this nonsense. We're 4 minutes late. We are on English Southern roads and we are on the homeward bound. Now, I must apologise for the last part of the journey of this is a little samey, and I haven't read the end yet, but here's a preview of what it's most likely to be. We rode in the dog cart, we went past some picturesque places, we stopped, we did a few sketches, we stayed overnight in a very nice hostelry, and then we went home and had tea and cake. I'm guessing that's the final romp of the story, but who knows? Maybe they'll meet a dragon. Maybe there'll be a man saying, "Can you put on a mask, please, if you're coming through this? This is tier 4. You can't come back home. You've got to stay over there. Can you just stay on the M20 hard shoulder, if you wouldn't mind? Wait your turn. We'll try and get you on the next ferry, but we don't know when the next ferry is." Lee Lawson says, "I had Mary Quant dress patterns and made my own." Good for you. If Mr. Hissey met her, he would say, "How quaint." Yes, and that was Justine Jones. And Turbo says, "I have more sense than to venture out on the roads." I dare say I should be out on Christmas Day, early, filming, working. I should be working. Right, where the devil were we? Leaving the church. I think we were leaving the church. Our kind guide said that we really ought to see the ancient stone bridge across the Rother, over which the highway still goes. Oh, yes, we were... Sorry, I've just got to itch my stomach. We were at Trotton, and this is the bridge with the traffic lights, over which the highway still goes. This was built by Lord Camoys. A bit slippery now, because there's a lot of soap. We did those jokes. Whose splendid brass we'd just inspected. In order to obtain a good view of it, we were conducted through the garden of the vicarage to a field below, from which the time-greyed, moss and linden-laden structure is well seen, and forms a pretty and interesting picture, with the little winding silvery river flowing beneath and the green woods rising behind. Recounting the dog cart, not recounting it, yes, dog cart, remounting the dog cart, we once resumed our driving. It was uphill out of Trotton, and soon we entered upon a heathery waste that looked dark and gloomy against the white sunlit sky. Here we noticed peat being cut and stacked to dry. Peat in Trotton, that's interesting. A rare sight in the south of England, yes. By the way, what delightful and healthy fires peat fuels make. No, we're not supposed to do that anymore. We've got to be conserving the peat. Otherwise, it's a place of scientific natural interest selection for the heritage people. It keeps aglow for hours without attention. It is clean and noiseless to put on the grate or hearth, and instead of sulphurous fumes, it gives off healing and antiseptic vapours. You wait and see. The Green New Deal will ensure that we're all burning peat and will be eco-friendly. Even the poisoned dwarf will be... Sorry, the poison goblin. The doom goblin. I can't remember her name. What did she used to say? It's only been a year ago when she was saying all of this. And what was her phrase? "You, how dare you? How dare you?" The doom goblin. How dare you? You mustn't burn peat. It'll put a hole in the ozone layer. How dare you? You are killing my childhood. You're killing my adulthood. I've been told, indeed, that for certain forms of disease that have actually been forms of disease have actually been cured solely by the employment of peat in the sleeping rooms of patients. The disease has been totally ridden of. Unfortunately, the people died as well, but there was no signs of disease in them once they had been deceased. That doesn't seem very good. By degrees, the heathery waste came dotted with firs, and gradually we descended into a well-wooded country where the aspect of the scenery was entirely changed. It was a sudden transition from the severe to the Sylvian, and Sylvan, 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 isn't it? It's like a form of silver, isn't it? And from the woods we drove into the clear little town of Midhurst, where we rested for a time to inspect the extensive and picturesque and interesting ruins of Cowdray House, ding, that lie in the valley about a quarter of a mile off and are reached by a pleasant footpath across some meadows. I wonder what that looks like, Cowdray House. As if I'd never seen it, he said. But luckily he has stopped and made a picturesque picture. And there, gentle folk, I believe... I don't know what that is, actually. Oh, the ruins of Cowdray House. There we are. It doesn't look anything like that now. And that man carrying a log, he's actually on his way to me to hand me some wood for my Hissey. Blessy, the Hissey. What do we got here? Poor Pete. What's happened to Pete? Who's Pete? Pete with the plastic feet. Wait, Michael White. I've got a friend called Pete. He's well preserved. Oh. Do horse whisperers live in Trotton? I think they do. And I think they shout at mules. Good Carol Glue, good afternoon. Ding, and we're off. Yes, we're going to miss those dings. I must get one of those little domed bells that they have in hotels. Ding! Bit late now. I was hoping someone would have, sent me one, but, can't expect everything. All good fun. What else are we at? Where are we? Our combined road book and guide, the ancient and ever faithful Patterson, thus tersely describes this spot, only the Arun should be the Rother. This picturesque ding ruins... Oh, you can't have a ding there because that's somebody else's picturesque. That's not his. This is a quote from his book, the Patterson thing. The picturesque ruins of Cowdray House, once the magnificent seat of the noble family of Montague. These ruins stand in a valley near the banks of the river Arun. Oh, I see. Meant to be the river Rother. Between two hills crowned with woods. Their present state bears evident testimony to the former magnificence and splendour of this justly celebrated mansion. On arriving at the ruins, we found that the present entrance thereto was through a doorway at the foot of a time-rent tower. An old woman, who was in charge of the ruins and acts as a guide, lives in the cottage adjoining. On our approach, she greeted us with the remark, "No regular charge for admittances made, but people gives what they like. Know what I mean? They gives what they... That's not very much, is it? They gives usually a bit more than that. No, they give even more than that. How much you got? Empty that into... That's more like it. God, blimey. Some people come in here expecting to get in for nothing." A very irritating financial arrangement in a small way, as one can never exactly estimate what is a fair fee, just what I said, really, as you can never, and not wishing to be considered mean, oh, you're so mean, probably gives by such an appeal more than the case requires. However, we estimated that 6pence would be a reasonable charge. 6pence? Well, you'll have the thrift. You're going for the Swift tour, are you, dear? We thought 6pence were a reasonable charge, were the charge made, and not being millionaires on our tour, although hoping to as a result of writing all these books, nor desiring to be considered such, offered this sum, which proved satisfactory, whereupon the door was opened and we were made free of the ruins, to explore, sketch and photograph at leisure. We were not even forbidden, as we have been elsewhere, to climb on the walls and towers, but we were told that if we did, it would be at our own risk. You climb on those at your own risk. This appeared to be quite fair, only, as we had no desire or intention to climb, the injunction did not concern us, but it was a concession to be allowed to break our legs or necks, should we desire. When you can do a thing, naturally, you have no wish to do it. As we entered, the old body followed us The old body. It's referring to the woman. The old body followed us and volunteered to act as a guide and to explain all about the ruins. It is so much more interesting when someone who knows about them tells you all about everything. Then we asked her if she had many visitors. To our surprise, she shook her head, saying, sadly, we thought, saying, "The ruins is my living, but I don't get nearly so many people to come and see them as I used to. I believe it's all them bicycles. Folk used to come here and spend all day in the ruins. Now they runs all over the country on them machines and stops nowhere. It's the roads, not the ruins, they admire. Mind you, there is a sign saying you've got to wear a mask and you must be 6 metres from each other." Notwithstanding all this, we did notice, as we walked along, 2 of the said machines lying on the grass outside, and we presume that the owners thereof were the 2 youths in knicker costumes that we saw within. Knicker costumes. But perhaps these were the exception to the rule, for truly, as our guide further remarked, 2 do not make a crowd. Yes, tell that to Boris Johnson or Matt Hancock. Things differ so from our point of view. We condoled with the old body in an anxiety to comfort her. We condoled with the old body, and in our anxiety to comfort her, invented a little fiction, the doing of which, on moral grounds, I candidly confess I do not defend. But we spoke on the spare of the moment. You see, we said, it's been a bad season for ruins lately. They've got a little out of fashion, but they are coming in again. To this the old body made no remark. Perhaps she thought we were romancing, or else she may have considered, rightly enough, that she understood her business better than we did. That's probably true. Cowdray House is, without exception... Can I start again? I'm not reading at all well again. I can't have 2 days on the trot where I'm reading dreadfully. This is outrageous. Cowdray House is, without the exception of the tower gateways, a roofless ruin, all open to the sky and weather. The walls of its chambers are bare and its courtyards are green and grass-grown. As we slowly progressed through the dismantled mansion, our guide pointed out to us the place where the ample kitchen was, the fine banqueting hall with its mullioned Tudor windows, in which ivy now takes the place of grass, the chapel aloft with its floor gone, but with the remains of the altar and sculptures, much weather-worn, and apostles on either side, the spot where the grand staircase ascended, and the chamber wherein Queen Elizabeth had slept. And in its present state, we thought that the kitchen appeared as desirable as an apartment as any. So does nature, left alone, work her own will and bring all things down to one equality. Then we were conducted across the grassy courtyard to the main gateway tower, the arched entrance to which is of groined stone with fan tracery, and in the bosses bears the initials W.S. with an anchor. The initials, we were told, were those of William, Earl of Southampton, upon whose death Cowdray passed by marriage to the Montagues. The anchor was introduced, the Earl being then an admiral of the fleet. Over the entrance of the royal arms of Queen Elizabeth, carved in stone, probably placed there to commemorate her visit to Lord Montague in 1591, when she shot 4 deer in the park from her crossbow. None of the rest of her court... Wait a minute. Over the entrance are the royal arms of Queen Elizabeth, carved in stone, probably placed there to commemorate her visit to Lord Montague in 1593, where she shot this thing, and there is the Queen Elizabeth tree, which I have made a video on. And it's a very old tree, probably dates... it was there in 1591, so it's older than that. When she shot 4 deer in the park with her crossbow, none of the rest of her court diplomatically shooting more than 1. Oh, the gentle art and craft of successful court... Oh, I cannot read! Sorry, just getting a little angry with myself. Cowdray House. Cowdray. This may be the last book I read, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, until I have actually learnt how to look at words and read them in the correct order. Cowdray is a house with a history that is the delight of antiquaries. The powerful Norman family of Bohun first held it and retained possession thereof until the reign of Henry VIII. The property, after being in the hands of the Earl of Southampton, passed into that of Sir Anthony Browne, the King's master of the house and chief standard-bearer of England, who was afterwards created Lord Montague, and in whose family it remained till 1793, when the house, with its priceless treasures, was destroyed by fire, including the famous Roll of Battle Abbey, and at the same time the last Lord Montague was drowned abroad, thus fulfilling the curse of Cowdray, said to have been uttered by a monk of Battle when a former Lord Montague took possession of the abbey lands, that by fire and water shall your house and family perish out of the land. Nice, charming, just the sort of monk that one wants to meet. Dudley Sawyer, deep breaths. Wim Hof. In, out, in, and let it go. Yes, we're just doing a bit of our Wim Hof breathing method there. Chapter 21. Blimey, how much more of this can one take? We are getting close to the end, ladies and gentlemen. About a mile out of Midhurst, we crossed the Rother on an old stone bridge. Oh, yes. That'll be up just before you get to... don't tell me. Let me guess. It's the other place. The one that has the name that's spelt one way and you pronounce it another. And I can't bloody remember. Anyway. It's Easebourne or Esbourne. Esbourne. It must be Esbourne, mustn't it? By the side of this was a stone-built mere... Will! No! Stop! Very important piece of apparatus has just fallen to the ground. One moment, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just going to retrieve this item. I'm just going to leave it there. Put it on a shelf underneath. I shall get it back. Are we still recording? Are we still live? Is there life in there yet? Oh, sorry, I was reading to myself then. Right. A mile out of Midhurst, we crossed the Rother on an old stone bridge. By the side of this was a stone-built mill and a weir that all combined with the trees around to make a very pleasing picture. Our road now entered Cowdray Park, a delightful and well-wooded domain with the great green sweeps of sward gently sloping to the south, and very charming it did look that afternoon with the soft sunlight glinting down the open glades and tipping the tall, waving bracken with a ruddy gold, the bracken itself forming a forest in miniature fit for fairyland. The trees here, we noticed, were chiefly beeches, though there was a sprinkling of oaks, mostly growing in the ferny hollows. Actually, there's a lot of London planes in that area, on the Gulf side of the thing. There was no boundary to the highway, and the park stretched away on either side of it, so that the road looked quite like a private one. It was a delightful drive. The road was smooth and undulating. There was no dust, and the scenery was all that it could be desired. So we were sorry when the park, with its restful green, shady, branching trees and cheerful gloom of wooded recesses, ended, and we found ourselves once more on the hedge-enclosed country lanes. It is pleasant for a time to get away from such fences or boundaries of any kind. It affords such a delightful feeling of spaciousness and freedom to travel through an unenclosed country. They'll be coming up to Halfway House, or whatever it's called. Halfway bridge, there we go. Now our road dipped down through a deep cutting in the red sandstone, over those tiny little bits of dual carriageway where people behind who are impatient try and get past, the Vobes being one of them, many times managing to get past these slow coaches and whiz his little Peugeot. No longer in the Peugeot, in the van, he's a little bit more respective of everybody else. But still, when people are slow, he barges them out the way just to get past those. There are some series of... I know that bit of road so well, ladies and gentlemen. And those little... Oh, when people go so damn slow on that stretch, and you can see that the little... tiny little dual carriageway comes up. You put your foot down and you get past the swines. Get out of my way. I have something to do. I have a life to lead. Anyway, that was 120 odd years later after that, of course. Anyway, our road dipped down through a deep cutting in the red sandstone, and further descent brought us to a spot marked as Halfway Bridge on our map. A very pretty spot it was, at the foot of a tree-clad glen, a tiny valley with a wide, winding stream flowing through it that worked an ancient mill wheel with much droning and creaking. Then it was uphill again, and a short drive through an open country brought us to Petworth, where at the Half Moon... Where's the Half Moon in Petworth? An ancient inn that has outlived many generations of travellers, we found comfortable quarters and a luxurious loose boxes for our horses. In the square at Petworth there used to be a chocolate machine. When I lived in Petworth, which I did for 2 years when I was 18 to 20... there was this chocolate machine, which in the winter I would nip down, and it was like 20p, I think it was, and you got a bar of chocolate. And in the winter I loved it particularly because I love chocolate when it's frozen, and I would go down there, bung in my money, ka-ching, and pull out this bar of chocolate. It was lovely. I wonder if he's going to mention the chocolate bar. As there was still an hour or so of daylight left, we set out our sketchbook in hand for a ramble around the old town that just escapes being quaint, but is full of picturesque little bits of appeal, however, more to the artist than the architect. At one part, where the houses suddenly ended and the country began, we found before us a chocolate machine in the square, only 20p. We placed our money inside, but found that the Vobes had got there before us and taken the last one. Curses, we said. Damn that bald-headed bloke with glasses. He is such a cad. We will have to catch up with him at some point in the future and bash him on the head. I know I will write this in such flowery language that makes it impossible for him to read coherently, and he will embarrass himself on his live shows. Well, he certainly managed to do that. Anyway, he continues, never mind that, at one part where the houses suddenly ended and the country began, we found before us a deep and wide valley, over which we had a fine view of the distant wooded uplands, and looked down upon the roof of trees of farmsteads in the vale. This is where Gog and Magog are. I do love these little rural towns. For one thing, they have no dismal suburbs. Well, that's still true, actually. At once, where the houses end, the country begins, the genuine country too. On the crest of the hill, where we stood admiring the pleasant view, we noticed a fine church in the course of construction. Where the hell is that then? This had more than the real medieval feeling about it, save a somewhat too mechanical rendering of the traciered windows than we'd ever found before in a modern building. It even managed to interest us. As a rule, 19th century ecclesiastical architecture produces but costly eyesores, a mere meaningless piling up of stones or bricks and mortar that profits only the contractor and certainly never arouses our enthusiasm. In the elder days of art, builders wrought with greatest care, each minute and unseen part, for the gods see everywhere. Linda Kane says, Shimmering Valley afternoon, folks. Linda, where is this place? Where is this church? Which, I don't really know which way. He says on the crest of a hill. Is he looking... He must be looking east, I reckon. If it had been left for the 19th century to reverse this order, it would be hardly profitable to examine the unseen part of the speculative contractor's work. He is no sentimentalist. Sentiment don't pay, as one of these gentlemen once remarked to me. Sentiments won't pay my butcher's or my baker's bill, will it? I'm not the biggest humbug in the world by a lot. If you want a church or a chapel built thoroughly well and honestly, why don't religious people of all the others pay a fair price for the work and not get it done as cheaply as possible? Good point. Inquiring of a stranger passing by, we learnt that this was the Roman Catholic Church being erected by a gentleman whose name I have now forgotten, but where the congregation are to come from. Furthermore, he said, "But where is the congregation to come from?" I asked. Furthermore, he said, "I don't know. There are not many Catholics in these parts. They'll just have to make them." This casual, half-joking remark set us seriously a-thinking. What of the 20th century religion? Ah, the 20th century religion of wokeness. Then, returning to our inn, we chanced to pass a watchmaker's shop, and we looked in, as our watch had stopped. Here we most unexpectedly discovered quite a small museum of things. Some of these, though not all, were for sale. We purchased an ancient Sussex rushlight holder and a pair of tobacco tongs for a few shillings. We had no idea till then that there was such an article as the last, and we begged to have its use explained to us. It appears that the instrument, which is small, shapely, and neatly made, was formerly employed to lift a live ember from the fire to light the pipe with. The tongs are also provided with an iron stop, the purpose of which was to ram the tobacco down the pipe. We have never yet returned home from any tour without having bought during the journey some relic of past days, valued both for itself and as a pleasing memento of the expedition. Amongst other articles we have thus picked up at moderate prices, I may enumerate a perfect old leather bottle, B-O-T-T-E-L, a 14th century helmet, a breastplate, some ancient pikes, an iPhone, all in good condition, very elaborately carved oaken linen chest, a black with age, 2 quaint old brasses, lantern clocks, a Board Explorer mug, a very beautiful old English bracket clock in capital order, for which we paid a not exorbitant sum of £4.10, a fine example of a Chippendale corner cupboard for china, one of those high bright brass fenders that were our mother's pride, a dear old spinning wheel, a rather rickety and out of condition Peugeot, however quite picturesque to look at, and a charming reminder of the long ago. Oh, that was the Peugeot. A doubtful old master on a panel representing a descent from the cross set in carved and gilt frame. This, we were told, had long been the altarpiece of a Roman Catholic chapel. The picture was protected by a glass door with a lock and was in a very dusty and cobwebby condition when we espied it stacked against a load of rubbish at the back of a second-hand furniture dealing shop, so much so that we could make out but very little of the painting. I have to confess that we brought it chiefly for the panel at the back. Yes. This was of oak or chestnut. It was so dark we couldn't tell. Oh, blimey, this bloke's a bit of a twit, isn't he? Well, he's in the right place in Petworth. Millions of antique shops there. He'll have loads and loads and loads. Anyway, it was protected from warping by a complete network of oak or chestnut blocks, dovetailed into each other, manifestly with great care and at the cost of considerable time. We reasoned to ourselves that all these pains would not have been taken except for a valuable painting, and so we speculated. Getting the picture home and cleaned, we found it signed Francesco Francia, and it was pronounced by a competent judge to be probably a genuine but somewhat retouched. I don't know who Francesco Francia is, but Who knows? And yes, and the cuddly toy. I forgot to mention the cuddly toy. Good game, good game. All right, my love. Let's look at the old scoreboard. Vobesy 2 points and Vobesy 3. So bad luck to you, but well done. You didn't do well. What do points make? Give us a twirl. Thanks. I need some chocolate. After consulting our map during the evening, we decided that we would drive on the morrow to Worthing. Worthing? Crossing over the downs by Findon. We selected Worthing, not that the town offered us any attractions in itself, but we knew that the Vobes lived there and we wanted to see the big shiny plaque outside his house. Also, the drive there would promise to lead us through some interesting country. We were basically making a convenience of Worthing as a place to sleep in. We'd heard that Vobes, although having a very large mansion and being somewhat generous nature, is bound to put us up. I promised to give him a copy of one of my books, which I would sign, and he said he'd read it in the live show. Out of Petworth was downhill at first. At the foot of the descent we noticed 2 grey old stone-built farmyards and a stone trough for water by the roadside, such as the one often sees in the North Country. The dale-like look of the valley, with the picturesque ding wayside trough and the substantial stone farmsteads, recalled to mind Derbyshire. Tier 4. We now ascended onto high ground, and the country broadened out into a wide and wild common, a bit of unsophisticated nature charming it in its ruggedness. A common dotted with stunted gorse and wind-twisted dwarf oaks, between which wound sandy roads. Must be getting on to Fittleworth and all round that area, I'm assuming here. The summer wind blew fresh and keen across this elevated spot. Oh, this is what's the name of this place? Oh, come on, Linda, you know this one. We went there the other day and did a walk there. Julia, where was that place? The something common up near Fittleworth, must be. The summer blew fresh across this keen elevated spot. It was mere fancy truly. There's a stupid set of words. It was mere fancy truly, but somehow high up there we seemed to be nearer the great white clouds that were driving across the vast expanse of sky overhead. Perhaps the feeling was due to the clearness and rarity of the atmosphere that apparently so shortens with age. Hesworth Common, that's the one. I well remember, whilst travelling in California, the exceeding difficulty I had in at all correctly estimating distances in the wonderfully pure air there, and the faraway seemed whatever. I really think that the Dutch and English atmosphere is the most artistic in the world. It gives the landscape such a mellow and idyllic look that it's more than compensates for all its other supposed shortcomings. Oh my God. By the side of the road stood a lonely public house. Oh, we're not quite at Hesworth. God, he's only just whizzed up the bloody lane. By the side of the common stood a lonely public house with the novel sign, well, novel to us at any rate, of the Well Diggers' Arms. He's only got to the Well Diggers' Arms. We had seen the Cyclists' Arms and the Blacksmiths' Arms and the Bricklayers' Arms. We weren't aware before that well diggers had arms too, although, of course, if they were to dig wells, they probably needed spades to dig them in the first place, silly man. And of all places in the world, to find well diggers up here in this sandy, sparsely populated region. Then, as we drove on, our road began to descend once more and took us deep into shade through wild, undisclosed woods with a thick undergrowth of bracken below. Rabbits ran into the roadway here and sported about, so tame that they did not hurry to scamper off as we approached until the last minute. This charming bit of wild woodland we found by a notice board, one, alas, of many, for they took away from the rusticity of the spot and that feeling of freedom as it induces. It reminded you the land was private property and you mustn't do this, blah, 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 blah. Something about the waste of... I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of this. The peeps that opened out through the trees, again, I know it's so entirely... This is... As we progress... Sorry, I'm missing out chunks now. It's so boring now. I mean, we've heard all of this. It's just every day we get to this It was more this and more that. I mean, Christ, we've got through all of this. As we progressed to another pleasant to the pressure of the country, it still maintained its wide-open character, the wooded waste giving place to a wild sketch of sandy heath covered in places dark, gloomy... Now this is Hesworth Common, that made the immediate landscape look sad and surly and strangely out of harmony with the golden green of the sun-suffused downs that loomed up brightly beyond. The pine trees sighted as the wind passed by, quite a different sound from the cheerful and companionable rustling of the multitudinous leaves in the elm or oak. Blah, blah, blah. We began to forgive the pines and all that blah, blah, blah. Soon after this, we found ourselves in Fittleworth. Thank Christ for that. A charmingly picturesque village set in the midst of gentle slopes. Surely they're going to go to the Swan. I think Fittleworth must be the prettiest spot in Sussex. Yes, it might have been. Blah, blah. Fittleworth. Happy travellers, we were contented. Yes, we could help, whatever. There was nothing sombre or depressing. Once an old gaffer came up to me and says, I like a bit of scandal, whatever. Down in the village... we descended into it, the small country... Poor old Linda's going, where the sodding hell are we? Down in the village, for we descended into it, we found a small country inn, a neat-looking outside remarkable, however, inside tiny parlour, panelled, and the panels on the walls at the sides painted with the oil colours. This is at the Swan. Oil colours with charming landscapes. They're still there. Then it dawned upon us this was an artist-haunted inn, and that these panels had been done by some of the artists staying here at various times. So the painters had discovered Fittleworth. Truly, it is an ideal spot to come with an easel and colours and study. The old obliging landlady mentioned to us the names of several well-known artists who had stopped with her. Why, she exclaimed, one of them is very kindly painting my signboard for me now. How very lovely. The Swan Inn, ran the legend. It is simply whatever. Anyway, we felt sorry to leave such a charming spot, but it was the same old story. Telling me it's the same old story. We couldn't really stop at every delightful spot we chanced upon, but you have been ever since we started. So reluctantly drove away, and soon afterwards we reached Stopham. Yes. I just had to get my geography in my head then, yes. We reached Stopham, where we crossed the Arun on an ancient stone bridge of 5 arches. The weather-stained bridge and the reedy river made such a sweet picture that we stopped to photograph it. Just then, a boating party came drifting along down the stream. No, they didn't. You're making this up. And backed water to introduce... We thanked them for their courtesy. Oh, I see. Then we proceeded to Pulborough. The silvery Arun winding through the green meadows and whatever. Pulborough did not appeal to us, so we passed through until we arrived at the quaint village of Washington. How did you get to Washington, you swine? Did you go via Fakeham or the back way there, which is Fakeham to whatever it's called. What is it called? Where they've ruined it. West Chiltington. Or did you not go through Storrington? I'm surprised he didn't mention Storrington. I mean, he stopped at every sodding place so far. The quaint little village of Washington, a name that reminds me of one in distant America. No, there isn't one in America. That's rubbish. The Sussex Washington is a delightful, primitive and picturesque being little hamlet, snugly. Didn't you go up... Oh, I see you went up there. You didn't go up the A24, which, of course, is the new bypass. You didn't go up there. From the topmost point of the high row and the chalk downs, 5 miles or so to Broadwater and a spot within Worthing. Yes, however, you got him in a blah, 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 blah. The only one, however, we stopped was at Broadwater. Now we're getting there. Sorry, I've been cutting out chunks. You may not have noticed, of course, the velvety tongue of the Vobes. Obviously, he's missed out Storrington, I've missed out some of the other bits. Here the church looked interesting. Right, here we go. Church looked interesting, and we pulled up just outside Lee Lawson's house. We knocked on the door, but she said, you can't come in. Go and have a look at the church instead. We're very busy at the moment. After all, Dick's down at the allotment getting my supper, and I've got some research to do about the lady of the house up at Petworth. Anyway, so we looked at the church. We thought it was interesting, and we admired it. An old body who observed our movements and possibly saw the prospect of a tip appeared out of a cottage close by. Wait a minute. That's not Lee again, is it? Key in hand and offered to show us over the interior. I'm only mentioning that for people may not know that Lee Lawson, who's out there watching, lives right next to the church, right next to the very church. This is amazing. It's very old, Lee said. In fact, that hardly needed telling. However, the woman was so pleasantly spoken, which is true, that we didn't like to disappoint her, so we allowed ourselves to be shown. A pleasant manner, what a power in the world it is. Emerson declares it to be the art of all arts, that the traveller opens castles and parlours, and Emerson knew that, along with his mate Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Within the hoary church of Broadwater, that still shows the handiwork of hardy Norman masons, we discovered an ancient canopied stone tomb recessed in the north wall of the chancel. This is to the memory of Thomas Lord de la Warr, who died in 1526. It bears a striking resemblance to the elaborate de la Warr monument as we saw at Boxgrove Priory, and is noteworthy as showing a skillful mixture of Gothic with the Renaissance. Only with the utmost care and perfect judgment can two such opposite styles of architecture be mingled without disaster. This tomb at Broadwater has a flat top, and if ever there were an effigy thereupon, it has long ago disappeared. Possibly there never was one, judging from the pleasant genteel appearance and the frequent custom of time, and it's probable that this tomb was designed to be used as an Easter sepulchre. Lee then went on to tell us about her great-granddad, who had been a Punch and Judy man on the seafront, and her father, who had done pantomimes, which had been interesting, and that were going to be reenacted shortly in the new year. This was amazing. Not only that, her great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather had something to do at Rustington, but I can't remember which because I hadn't seen the video that Mr. Vobes was yet to make. Anyway, getting on past all of that, there was a lot of other stuff in the church which we found relatively interesting, but we don't have time to mention it here. However, on the floor of the church we noticed a very fine brass representing a coped priest, or copt, under a canopy. This is in the memory of John Mapleton, a former rector of the parish who died anno millennio si quat bis ex dodo dingly dangle dong dong dinglang, which is a rather complicated way of writing 1423. Simple numerals that everyone can read at a glance would be better. There are also some other brasses and bits and bobs that we also thought, and we thought that was quite nice. Chapter 22. Richard, stop, says Lee Lawson. Stop it. Oh dear. From Worthing, we planned to drive to Lewes, skirting fashionable... Wait, you haven't gone into Worthing, you swine. You've got to go and stroll on the pier that probably wasn't built then. You didn't been to Worthing, you only been to bloody Broadbridge Heath. The Broadbridge Heath? I mean, whatever the place is. What is it? Broadwater. I think I'm having a nervous breakdown. Look, we're very close to the end of this book now. We are very close to the end. From Worthing, we planned to drive to Lewes, skirting fashionable Brighton to the south. As far as Old Shoreham and some way beyond, our road led parallel to the seashore. Before we got to Shoreham, we went past the lovely Julia's house. Amazing. There we had a stroll. Julia, with her delightful purple hair, and little Joe in his pram, showed us the wonderful wide water, which was an amazing construction, which was half brackish water and half sea water. It was great to see the Loch Ness Monster swimming and cavorting in the water there, for we had thought it had been on holiday from Scotland. Anyhow, it took us a gentle elevation along the foot of the downs, so that whilst we had a pleasant rural country to pass through, we caught at the same time the trees over the fields and frequent peeps of the fresh breeze blowing, and all of that stuff that you normally get when reading my books. Eventually we arrived at the village of Sompting. Here, walking up to a tree-shaded lane, we reached the church, notable for its quaint Saxon tower, in the form unique in England now, though there it is said to have been familiar one at Flixton in Suffolk in the early century, which was unfortunate. I used a term. Anyway, this curious tower is well worth attention, although if you look at Richard Vobes' films, you'll see it there. We found the door locked, but the vicar was busy doing something in a room, and he said, anyway, as we were about to leave, 2 men on bicycles came up, hot and dusty. Addressing me, they asked if we were in Tier 4 or Tier 2, because they hadn't a clue, and asked if I could tell them where the Saxon church was. I said, there it is, in front of you, you fool. I was tempted to add, can't you see it for yourself? For the church was right in front of them, naturally a prominent object, but I kept the peace. Call that a Saxon church? Exclaimed the spokesman. I call that a swindle. And we've ridden 20 dashed miles to see that. By golly. We tried to calm him down and threw a bucket of worms over him and reasoned with him, but they would have none of it. Call that a Saxon church? He retorted quite indignantly. Why, it's just an ordinary one. I am not sure what he really expected to see, but I deemed it best not to venture to inquire. Anyway, from that, the gentle rises and falls, we found ourselves in Lancing, from whence the road gradually descended to the river Ada. Upon reaching the lowly marshy land, we passed a primitive little inn with the singular sign of the Sussex Pad, presumably a name handed down from the pre-coaching days when this road was a mere bridle track, and possibly rough at that, and when all the travellers thereby had to journey on horseback or on foot, the ancient meaning of pad being a slow-going horse, one that carries packs and light merchandise. Doubtless many other houses were so named over the country, but changed their signs to suit the changed times. This remote little inn has, however, happily retained its ancient designation. Unfortunately, I didn't realise that in 1905 it was to burn down and be rebuilt in 1906, in only, 11 years' time from the publication of this book. Such old-day signs are now becoming rare. The pack horse is almost extinct, and even wagon and horses is not to be met as so frequently as of yore. Much respect for making it up on the fly, says Turbo Stream. Yes, well, this has been a lovely book, Justine Jones. I did buy another one by him with the thought that we could read that. I've had second thoughts. Only because we've got the measure of him. I mean, you could have shortened this volume in half, couldn't you? A little farther on, we had a view across the flat salt marsh of the blue sea and a long succession of white breakers rushing to the shore. Which bridge do you suppose he's going to go over? At the end of the marsh, we crossed the Ada on a long timbered bridge, the old toll bridge. Before driving over this, however, we pulled up in order to make a primitive sketch. Has he given us a sketch of it? No, the swine. Just given us the next one is Lewis Castle. Anyway, before driving it, we did a sketch of the bridge. It was quite a nice sketch and what have you. On the opposite is the grey Norman church with its massive walls and dumpy tower, St. Michael. Is it St. Mary's? I think, is it St. Mary's? Is it St. What is it? The church there. There's the one, the funny odd name church down the bottom, isn't there? But I think this is St. Mary's, isn't it? Or St. Michael's or something. Anyway, the bridge was over there. Here we had to pay a toll, the second one on our whole journey, collected by the railway company for maintaining the bridge. Oh, that's interesting. So the toll collector said. We were now in Old Shoreham, and as we passed close to it and found the door of the church open, we had a look inside. With the This is the one with the mice in, isn't it? Is that the one with the mice? Or are the mice in the St. Mary's which is the one with the Mises in? The northern one is St. Michael's. That's what I thought. Yes, I thought it was St. Michael's. That's what I was going through. Which is the one with the mice? Is that the something one? The little carved mice. Anyway, we noticed that the beams across the chancel was adorned with the familiar dog tooth. Yes, I'd been in there, made a video. There's a video of this if you want to watch it. I never remember having seen wood so ornamented. Blah, blah, blah. From Old Shoreham, he's rapidly getting there now. Look at this, he's rapidly going. From Old Shoreham to Brighton, the road was not noticeably any features or scenic or otherwise. We went past Marks and Spencer's and Sainsbury's, but we didn't stop to buy anything from there. From Brighton to Lewes, we passed an uneventful valley of the Downs, and at Lewes we rested the night. Wow, that last bit. I mean, come on. At Falmer, you could have gone and nipped in at Falmer and had a look at Falmer, for example. Could have gone to the football stadium or the lovely little farm shop there, or gone to the church. There's lots of things you missed out there, you swine. Anyway, I think that Lewes is the most picturesque town in the south of England. Truly, it is not so quaint as Bosham or Wareham, not so romantic as Dartmouth, not so rugged as Ilfracombe or other places I could name, but for pure homely picturesqueness, I feel it deserves the palm. Plus they have their own currency, and the Marian martyrs were burnt at the stake there, and Richard Vobes, funnily enough, made his first Bald Explorer video around Lewes. As seen from almost any point of view on the Daisied Downs, which was later to be covered with monoculture around, or from the meadows below, the eye licensed to ignore the intruding railway which had broken up the abbey there, Lewes makes a most picturesque picture, with its time-rent castle, which keeps perched on the summit of the steep hill, the towers above the town, and it's embosomed in the trees below, with the red roofs of flake, blah, 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 blah. Our first visit to the castle, mounting innumerable steps, yeah, there are, we reached the... How are we doing on the time? We reached the last one of the ancient, for Lewes, was, yes. Here we found a small but very interesting museum of old-time relics pertaining to Sussex. From the topmost point of the tower, looking all around are extensive, eye-delighting prospects to the east that stretched away the curving downs. You could see Mount Caburn and various other places. You can see quite a way. It's all very nice. And Lewes is dreamy, clean, picturesque old town, hilly and crooked streets full of charming bits of ancient architecture that appeal to the eye and the artist. Lots of things. The Priory of St Pancras is down below. We went in search of Jeriah Chapel, the grave of William Huntington, but we couldn't find it. We did find the chapel and we went inside. It was quite nice. Then we went to another church and had a look in there. The old Star at Lewes, which is where the... Oh, he does mention this, actually. The old Star at Lewes, with his fine carved oak staircase, historic hostelry, wherein rested on a previous journey, has disappeared, or rather changed its use. It's a pity, because Ye Star Inn, that bore the sign of Queen Mary's reign, we found of 10 heretics that were burnt in front in 1557, of whom 4 were women. We may be grateful that the age of martyrdom is past, although, of course, people will be taking the knee in the future for certain political reasons. From Lewes, our next progress, to use an old-time expression, was to Newhaven. A pleasant 7 mile down to Newhaven. We caught the ferry, but we found a lot of people trying to get home for Christmas there, and Macron wasn't letting them in. The country between Lewes and Newhaven is quite charming. There's nice things down there too. It's 5 o'clock. We're almost at the end now, ladies and gentlemen. Remarkably, we're almost at the end. So let's just finish this. So we get down there. We have a look at Bishop's Stone, there where there used to be a mill on the thing. We left Bishop's Stone, went to Seaford. That's all quite nice at Seaford with the beach, with the Seaford Head and the beachy airs. 2 miles westward of Seaford, we came to the secluded Cookmere Valley, where we crossed the river of that name and down to the sea. Nice cottages there, which, of course, I'm sure in about 100 years will be very close to coming off the cliff. Then we went to West Dean, which is a sleepy hollow, which I have yet to go. We carried on looking west from Frinton Place. Friston Place has got some things in it. There were other places, and from Friston it was a sharp descent to East Dean, another peaceful little village sheltered in that by the Burling Gap, where many a cargo has been ruined by the smugglers of old. Out of East Dean it was stiff collar work for a mile. Then we came to the top of the downs and fine views. To our right we saw Beachy Head. Then, as the shadows were lengthening and the west was glowing golden, we dropped quietly down from our elevated position and found ourselves safely back in Eastbourne, sun-browned and full of health, our minds stored with a host of lots of memories. Wasn't it? Didn't we do well? And now, our kind reader, our pleasant summer wanderings on southern English roads are ended, and I have to thank you for your good company for so far and for so long. Give me your hand. It only remains for me to say goodbye. No, rather let it be till we meet again, for on another day, on another road, I would crave anew your most welcome company. Before we part, I propose a toast to our next enjoyable holiday on the road. And there, with a timely ending, we have managed to get to the end of the book. What a lovely book. And I have to say, very picturesque. Ding! Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. But to be honest, did we miss anything? Did we miss out much? I think we got the best of it, and the end was a bit of a gallop. And I think he was really just checking off. I mean, he got to a point where he had nothing to add. But it was a good book. I did enjoy 90% of that. I actually, for all of it, I enjoyed quite a little bit of the flowery language. I enjoyed the challenge of trying to read it. I hope I haven't broken my piece of apparatus that fell off the desk. I'm sure I haven't. It's a robust thing. I think we will take a break now. Tomorrow is Christmas Eve, and I've actually got to go and have my eye done at Southlands. When I say my eye done, I mean a checkup, and they're going to put the drops in, which means I can't see anything. So I would have to cancel tomorrow. So I'm glad that we managed to get to the end of the book. Thank you very much, Justine, for sending that in. Linda Kane, can I say that English Pastoral is an absolutely amazing book. I know you read it in one thing, and it's only just come out, and obviously we can't read it. I am enjoying reading that very much. I'm loving it. I'm about a fifth through. I haven't been able to read it in one sitting, but it is a can't put down book for sure. I absolutely love that. We need to think about the next book. So we're all going to be up to our eyes in tears, clearly, from Boxing Day. So I think Monday whatever Monday is, I think that would be the next time we reconvene for another reading. I hope you didn't mind all the paraphrasing and jumping and adding of personal things. It's a shame we didn't get down to Worthing, because there could have been a few more added humorous spots there to add, but it was great to add a few local flavor. And he didn't go into Angmering. We could have had Linda Kane in that story, but maybe the next one has it. I thought of you when I saw it, Julia, something you can just dip into, I think. It is a lovely book. It is a lovely book. I don't know where it's going. I'm assuming that he's going to make a statement about the current state of affairs towards the end, after having gone through all the business with his grandfather, and I assume there's going to be a harrowing part in which his grandfather dies. But at the moment I'm thoroughly enjoying it. It's very good. Anyway, thank you so much for coming along and bearing it. I'm sorry this year has been an absolute dreadful one, but I will try and keep us entertained with more readings for those that enjoy the readings. And I hope you have a fantastic Christmas. Go out and make merry. Meet as many people as you sodding well can, because it looks like we're all going to be locked up in our own personal hell from Boxing Day onwards. But it does look, I just went and read the guidelines on the .gov website for Tier 4. And there's actually quite a bit of leeway, certainly if you're working and you're on your own. So I still hope to bring to you, regardless, the Sussex Border Walk, provided that all of Sussex remains in Tier 4 and I'm working on my own and the weather is reasonable. I will bring you those, and any other rubbish that I can think of that I can do at home. So there we go. Look after yourselves, and thank you very much. Suggestions for another book. I have got one in mind, which I haven't read, but might be quite nice. So I don't know how to keep in touch with you really over the Christmas period till Monday, but maybe Monday we'll put together a selection. If you've got ideas, send me an email, richard@vobes.com, and we can put together a selection and see what we do. Anyway, thank you so much. Look after yourselves. Excuse me. And I will catch up with you. There's a video for tomorrow, and hopefully there'll be one on Christmas Day as well. Take care, look after yourselves, have fun, and bye for now. Merry Christmas to you all. Bye-bye.